Well, hello. I'm experimenting today with a little bit more film-like setting on the camera. We'll find out if I like it. But what I really want to talk about today, I've been reviewing pens. Well, now I'd like to talk just a little bit about buying pens. Now, as I say I'm going to talk about buying pens, keep this in mind. Opinions are like, crude phrase, everybody has one. There are people who are going to disagree with some of my advice. Some people are going to disagree very strongly. So I'd suggest getting out there, find a couple people's advice, and make up your own mind. So this is just me. And if you see me look down a lot, it's because I'm looking at this guy. I wrote myself an outline so I'd stay on topic and not just ramble off the top of my head. Well, I could babble forever. I just got done doing that for 49 seconds. Yep. So let's start down the list here. I have 10 items I would suggest looking at. First one, biggest one on the list, is budget. You want to watch out for champagne tastes on a beer budget. It's better to have beer tastes on a champagne budget. You don't want to overspend on anything. And I don't care if we're talking fountain pens here or whatever. Cars, computers, camera equipment, cell phones, whatever it is you buy. Look a little less. Pay cash for it. We live in a very consumerist culture, especially here in the United States. But, don't think it's just the United States, because it's in a lot of places. And often it's easier to say, I don't want things when you can't buy it anyway. I don't want a Porsche 911. Okay, that's easy for me to say because I can't afford one and never will be able to afford one. So I'd suggest pay cash. Wow, my email's getting really annoying there. I would suggest when you look at a pen, don't immediately buy it. Pause, wait, think about it. Usually when we see something we want, immediately this urge to acquire just takes over and you're like, I want that pen. Well, what if you don't? What if you're just excited about it in the moment? If you wait a week, 2 weeks, a month, after that initial urge comes by, to actually buy it, you might actually discover that urge subsides. I often will leave pens, because I live in southwestern North Dakota, so my nearest pen store is hundreds of miles away. I will often put pens in an electronic shopping cart and then leave it there for a month or two. Well, I won't give examples. My goal today is not to brand bash. But there have been lots of pens that have popped into that cart and never were purchased. Because if you wait, that urge to acquire subsides. And then when you really do buy it, it's something you really do like. It's not just in that moment of, oh, that was a pretty pen, I'm going to buy it. No, weird. And of course, remember why you want to buy the pen. Are you collecting? Is it fitting a role in your collection? Whatever it is. Or were you just caught in the moment of, wow, that's a pretty pen, I want it. Buy. Okay, and then next thing on my budget, or on my list, number 2, is start cheap. Now I told you something about opinions a minute ago. There are some people who are going to disagree with me. They'll say, well, I wish I had started out buying a more expensive pen instead of wasting my money on those cheap pens. But if you're new to buying fountain pens, you don't know what your tastes are yet. Find out, first of all, do you like fountain pens? They're extra work. You have to clean them. Maybe you're somebody that loses pens easily. Maybe you bear down so hard when you write, your tines will go like this as soon as you start writing. You're also refining what are your tastes in pen size, in finish, in nib size, and so on. And I'm a teacher, so I'm going to look at it this way. When you're new to something, you look at it and experience it quite differently than somebody who's really into it. Like a little kid who's just learning to read sees the word start and sees S-T-A-R-T, start. They look at the sounds, they look at the letters, they sound it out. Now me, as a 38-year-old man who's been reading for a number of years, I look at the word start and I see the word start. I don't even think about the individual letters. I process my reading quite differently from the way a little kid does. And that's because I'm more expert at it. So the way I would look at fountain pens is quite different from how I looked at fountain pens at the beginning of the hobby. And that's why I say start cheap. Develop your tastes, find out what you like, and move on from there. I have a stopwatch because I know this is going to run longer than my camera can, so I'm going to have to do this in two filmings at least. Third thing, big one, whenever you buy anything, I don't care if it's a fountain pen, research, read blogs, read reviews, go online, look at these forums, go to sales websites, see what's out there. Goulet pens and Anderson pens have nice pictures of all their pens, and I'm sure the other sellers do too. That just happens to be the two I go to. And there's videos out there where you can actually see the pen in use. I am one of them. Stephen Brown is excellent. He's got way more than I will ever have in his video collection. Matt Armstrong with the Pen Addict has a lot of nice, very professional reviews. You know, with them you can see how pens write, how they behave, and see what other people think of them. Now remember, Goulet pens, Ink Nouveau, Anderson pen, they're trying to sell you pens. Stephen Brown, Matt Armstrong, me, the other fountain pen reviewers aren't. You know, I am not, Stephen Brown is not. We're not in business to do that. We make no money if you buy these pens. You know, when I review this pen, it's because I like it, not because I'm trying to sell it to you, because I'm not. It's mine. I have never been asked to advertise. I don't think most reviewers are. I know occasionally there's controversy about it, but we're just giving you opinions. But what you have to watch out for with us is we're reviewing the pens we're passionate about. If I talk to you about this pen, it's because I like it, not because I hate it, or because I'm totally objective about it, because I'm not objective. So keep that in mind when you start looking at these video reviews. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is be careful, because there aren't really that many truly unbiased reviews of pens out there. I try, but you know, I like what I like. Okay. So after research, another thing to look at is filling mechanism. You're going to discover you like certain filling mechanisms better than others. Now, I personally have decided I like the piston fillers the best. My least favorite is a cartridge. I hate cartridges, and I'll do another video someday about why. Look at that. And at all price points you can find most filling mechanisms, except I haven't really run into a cheap vacuum filler. Okay, so another one, number 5 on my list, why are you buying? What's your intended use for the pen? Some people are collectors. I'm not a collector. I want a selection of pens that I can use. Other people will collect vintage pens, or somebody will say, oh, I want every single Noodler's pen that's ever been made, or I want all the old Parker dual folds or something. So, you know, when I buy a pen, I'll say, oh, I want a pen I can write broad lines with, or I want a pen that's got a flex nib on it, or I want a pen that I can dedicate to Bay State Blue. You know, think about it. Why are you buying it? Are you just buying it because, oh, I saw this pretty pen, and all of a sudden, I have this urge to acquire. I will own it. It shall be mine. No, that's weird. Don't be weird. Okay. Look at finishes. There are a lot of different finishes on pens. There's acrylic. This is pretty. There's ebonite. Oh, I don't have one here. Here's a pretty Macrolon pen. Here's a nice, just plain ordinary resin pen. You know, there's demonstrators. You can look at your different finishes. Some of them are pretty exciting. Some are very pretty. I happen to like the acrylic ones the best, but I have a lot of different finishes. And of course, think about brand. As you get into this, you're going to discover that there's finishes and brands that you like better than others. My personal favorite happens to be Noodler's. I love the Noodler's pens. If I cut the Noodler's out of my collection, there wouldn't be much left. I like Pilot. I'm not going to get into negative because that's not the point of this video, but there are certain brands I will avoid, and I will never buy one of their pens. Let's see. Of course, realize that as you start buying more pens, your tastes are going to refine, and they're going to change. And every so often, it's a healthy thing just to thin the herd. Get rid of the pens you're not using and don't have a passion for. Let other people enjoy them. Some people like to sell these pens. Others, like me, I like to just give them away. Of course, I'm thinning out a little bit more low-cost pens than some people are. But thin the herd every so often so you're surrounded by things you know and you love and that you use, not by things that you stare at thinking, oh, I should use that pen. I spent so much money on it, but I never use it. I feel so guilty. This hobby is horrible. Don't get like that. That's, yeah. And of course, realize that the more pens you buy, the more likely you are to have problems with some of them. It's not laying here. My very first expensive pen was a Pilot Custom 823. So of course I inked it up with my favorite ink, Noodler's Black. And it wrote beautifully. It was everything I could have dreamed of. And then it stopped. And it didn't write anymore. And I was really, really, really upset. Finally figured out this isn't the pen, but let's just pretend. It shows up on the video. Down here at the top of the feed, every fountain pen, the bubbles rise up from the feed into the ink chamber. Now with Noodler's Black in the Pilot Custom 823, the bubbles would just stay there. And then, after I used up all the ink that was in the feed, the pen wouldn't write anymore. Now, I know some of you are watching this are going to say, well, idiot, open the blind cap. I did. The problem was the bubbles and the ink. When I put other inks in there, the pen is everything I could have dreamed of. So, I no longer use the Pilot 823 with Noodler's Black. I use it with Heart of Darkness or something. So find out, is it the ink? Maybe it's the paper. Maybe it is the pen. Can you fix it? I once bought a Noodler's Conrad that wouldn't write. I could see the ink in the fins of the feed, but it wouldn't write. Well, you know what I realized finally? I needed to heat set it. Problem solved. Sometimes the pairs are more expensive, but you will run into a lemon or a problem every so often. And I really hope it's not your first pen. Okay, and then the last thing, is this hobby, buying these pens and writing with them, is it bringing you joy? Are you still enjoying it, or are you just buying out of the sense of duty? And another thing in there is keep this hobby in its place. I use the pens to write, and writing is a big thing to me, but there's other things in life. Girlfriends, friends, family. I once read a horrible post about a guy who was upset because there was a pen he wanted to buy on eBay, and he wanted to be able to stay on the auction, but he had to go to a family reunion somewhere where he couldn't keep up with this auction. And he was trying to decide whether he should skip the family reunion or risk not getting the pen. And I just thought, go to the family reunion. Family is more important than some pen. Don't keep this in perspective. Any hobby, I don't care what it is, keep it in perspective. The people, the connections you make, the things you do are far more important than the things you own. So, quick summary. I see my battery's running low and I'm running up against my time limit on this camera anyway. Budget, start cheap, research before you buy, look at filling mechanisms, look at why you're buying, what's your intended use of the pen, look at finishes, brands. Be aware your tastes are going to refine and change, and thin the herd when they do. Be aware that some pens will have problems. Hopefully it's not your first one. And lastly, make sure that using and buying these pens is bringing you joy and staying in its proper place in your life. So I thank you for watching. Down the road I might do some more specific, more technical what to look at with pens, but I thought I'd do a more philosophical, broad overview.